My name is Jake Hodas. I'm from New York City. I am the co-owner of Lullaby, a cocktail bar in the Lower East Side. Sort of a pandemic baby. Started just me and my business partner hanging out in each other's apartments, talking about, the bars that we wish we were at. And one thing sort of led to another. We started talking about what our ideal bar looked like. A few YouTube tutorials on how to make a business plan later, and we're moving. Eventually signed a lease and opened Lullaby. So I'll just jump into the presentation. I don't really want to spend too much time talking about myself. All right, so you can probably tell why they've elected me to speak on Gen Z. So I'm going to talk to you about how to capture that demographic. So this is beating the algorithm, capturing Gen Z's attention span. So marketing a bar on social media is difficult. Hospitality is not as conducive to the digital space as other industries. You look at retail, entertainment, even fitness. They've all been able to find a pocket in that digital realm. But squeezing hospitality into the tight confines of a digital medium has proven difficult. And I would say that that's not for a lack of trying. A lot of this struggle arises from the confusion around what the product being marketed actually is. As a bar, I think it can be easy to narrow the scope to just the drinks. Many bars carry this mentality, and that's not just in regards to their marketing or their social media presence, but in the way they look at the business itself. When we opened Lullaby, we made a list of our favorite bars, and we examined what exactly made them our favorite. There were a variety of different places, from dance clubs to dive bars to cocktail bars, the whole gamut. And some shared commonalities, absolutely. We realized that through that process that none of them were actually our favorite bars because of the drinks that they served. Sure, we have plenty of bars that serve drinks that we love, absolutely. But that wasn't enough to keep us coming back. It wasn't the thing that made them our favorite. So we sort of looked at this and recognized a void in the industry that we wanted to fill. We wanted to create a bar that was equally as committed to every aspect of the experience as it was to the drinks. This was particularly important to us because we believe that our product isn't actually the drink, but the experience itself. And sure, cocktails are a part of this experience, of course, but so is the lighting, the music, the ambiance, the conversation with your bartender and other guests at the bar, the shot you take for the road before you walk out the door. And I don't think that it's any one of these things that's necessarily going to lead a person to come back, but ultimately it's the feeling that arises from their congruence that does make people want to return. And so while a picture is never going to capture all of an experience, we believe that the best way to represent as much of that experience as possible is to capture the pictures of our smiling guests. And I know, as corny as that sounds, we think it's the closest way we're going to get to representing our hospitality, our product, in a photo. And while I've never marketed a spirits brand before, we have professionals who are going to speak to that, I think there's a similar approach that applies. Ultimately in any marketing, you're marketing an experience. You're selling a dinner party, you're selling a promotion, a marriage proposal, you're selling a celebration. So you have to think, how can I get someone to buy my celebration? And I think when thinking about something like a brand, there's actually kind of more room for creative liberties there because you're not confined to the parameters of a physical space the way that I am marketing my bar. So in coming up with our social media approach, we knew we wanted the focal point to represent our hospitality mission by centering on the guest. We believe that the experience is both for and about them. It's not about us. And so we partnered with our friends at Manual, which is a camera and photography company based out of New York City. They're super community-driven. They align with our culture and our philosophy, so it just made a lot of sense. We collaborated with them in creating some custom disposable cameras, which we'll pass out to our guests on a regular basis. They fill them up with pictures of their friends. They return them to us. We pass them back to the guys at Manual who developed them, and that's ultimately what ends up on our Instagram feed. And so in this way, our social media is crowdsourced by the guest, for the guest, to most accurately represent their Lullaby experience, which we believe is ultimately the Lullaby experience. And in so doing, we simultaneously cultivate a sense of community ownership. We recognize, though, that it can be difficult for traction on social media to translate to actual business. This isn't retail. There isn't a swipe-up option that's going to pull you to a website where you can buy a product. A lot of times, I think the traction that you find on social media can tend to stay there. And then when you're looking at a group like Gen Z, who's had an iPhone and social media since the start of their adolescent social development, they're the most technologically literate, most media literate generation to date, and they make up a larger percentage of the consumer market every day. On top of this savvy, I think that, on top of the savvy that allows them to subconsciously cut through targeted posts and ads in a fraction of a second, there's also a jaded disposition to the digital bombardment, I would say, of consumer marketing that they've experienced from a really early age. And so all that said, there's still this disconnect that exists in the marketing tactics used to capture this demographic. And so the way to cut through all this is actually to take a more humanistic approach, which we believe leaves the most resounding impression. As the world becomes increasingly digital, increasingly remote, hospitality is actually unadaptable. And that's not a bad thing. We're proudly human. It's our industry's strength, and we believe that we should do all that we can to preserve that. So thank you very much.